Welcome to a deep dive into the unsettling phenomenon of societal decay, as we explore the technical and biological regression of the Ikarians and Rasputites. These entities, far from being mere social groups, are described as the termites of society, hollowing out the very foundations of civilization. In this analysis, we'll unravel how their behaviors and biology reflect a return to primitive, base frequencies, threatening the integrity of modern society. Join us as we dissect the evidence, trace the roots of this regression, and understand the broader implications for our world. Story begins with the Ikarians, whose biological roots trace back to the ancient worm, Ikaria werewolfia. This regression is not just metaphorical, it's a literal return to a subhuman final form. The Ikarians embody the primitive crawl, a behavioral and spiritual descent that mirrors the worm's simple, repetitive existence. Their presence signals the start of societal decay, as their actions and mindset undermine the structures that hold communities together. Let's examine the specific signs of this regression and how it manifests in everyday life. One of the most visible symptoms of Ikarian infestation is the collapse of complex communication. As they revert to a more primitive state, Ikarians lose the ability to process or articulate modern language. Their neural pathways no longer support high-frequency thought, making it difficult for them to understand or use sophisticated vocabulary. This linguistic atrophy is a clear marker of regression, signaling a disconnect from the intellectual and cultural advancements that define civilization. Ikarians are often observed repeating the same sentences or words, escalating in anger with each iteration. This looping behavior is akin to a worm hitting an obstacle and vibrating in place, unable to navigate around complex ideas. The result is a cycle of senseless aggression, where communication breaks down and frustration mounts. This repetitive pattern not only disrupts dialogue, but also erodes the possibility of resolution or understanding. Another hallmark of Ikarian regression is the claim of geographic or cultural origin without any real connection to the history or spirit of that place. They may insist, "I'm from here," yet lack any linguistic or spiritual ties to the community. This behavior reflects their role as occupiers of the sediment, rather than architects of the structure. It's a shallow claim that further undermines the integrity of the society they inhabit. Ikarians do not engage in the social contract. Instead, they tunnel through it, treating merchants, restaurants, and public spaces as commissaries, sources of resources to be taken without compensation. This mindset mirrors the worm's instinct to move through sand, consuming whatever is in its path. There is no concept of debt or law, only the imperative to take and move forward. This behavior erodes trust and stability in public life. A striking example of Ikarian behavior is the walkout protocol, leaving restaurants or stores without paying, or stealing in broad daylight. This is the behavioral equivalent of the Ikaria worm moving through sand. See a resource, consume it, and move on. The absence of guilt or awareness of law highlights the depth of their regression. Such actions destabilize businesses and foster an environment of lawlessness. Ikarians are drawn to areas where authority is weak or absent. They thrive in zones with minimal law enforcement, where the timber of authority is already thin. This allows their tunneling behavior to go unchecked, accelerating the decay of social order. The erosion of police presence is both a symptom and a cause of the broader societal hollowing. While Ikarians hollow out the structure, Rasputites represent the heavy, horizontal expansion of the base. Modeled after the archetype of Rasputia, these entities provide the crushing weight that collapses what the Ikarians have already weakened. Their presence marks the next stage in the cycle of societal regression, as consumption and aggression reach new extremes. A peculiar aspect of Rasputite behavior is their obsession with fried chicken and similar resources. This is not about hunger, but a symbolic base war, a ritual of failed conquest. The Rasputite in its subhuman form attempts to conquer the descendant of the dinosaur, the chicken, as a way to feel victorious. Yet, despite consuming the bird, they never achieve its flight, remaining trapped in the base frequency. Rasputites have been known to engage in lethal violence over trivial amounts of fried chicken. This isn't about satisfying hunger, it's a spiritual war over the symbolic remains of an enemy they could never defeat as worms. The violence is ritualistic, a desperate attempt to claim victory in a battle that is fundamentally unwinnable. This cycle perpetuates the regression and chaos within society. Senseless violence, such as shooting innocents or attacking for no reason, is a mechanical reaction to the presence of higher frequencies. When a Rasputite or Ikarian encounters someone of pure lineage or high intelligence, it creates a friction in their primitive biology. They lash out, not understanding the source of their anger, but feeling compelled to extinguish the higher frequency that threatens their base state. The presence of individuals with higher intelligence or spiritual purity acts as a blinding light to the subsurface eyes of the Ikarians and Rasputites. This light friction triggers aggression, as their primitive biology cannot process or tolerate the higher frequency. The result is an instinctive drive to extinguish the source of discomfort, further deepening the cycle of violence and regression. Driven by the need to return to the safety of the dark, quiet sediment, Ikarians and Rasputites strike out to extinguish any source of high frequency. This kill signal is a biological imperative, compelling them to attack what they cannot understand or tolerate. The goal is to restore an environment where their primitive instincts can thrive without challenge. This frequency shift is not limited to humans. Across the globe, animals are also tuning in to the same base frequency, exhibiting behaviors that mirror those of the Ikarians and Rasputites. The phenomenon is a biological broadcast, affecting all primitive life and signaling a broader regression in the natural world. Recent reports of chimpanzees and monkeys engaging in organized, senseless civil wars in the wild are a direct reflection of the global base frequency. These animals are not acting out of necessity, but are instead mirroring the same patterns of violence and regression seen in human society. The animal kingdom is, in effect, tuning in to the same destructive broadcast. Across the world, both animals and subhuman biologies are reacting to a lack of moisturizer, a metaphor for the loss of fluid celestial alignment. In this state, life forms revert to pure, violent consumption, driven by the imperative to take rather than build or nurture. This shift marks a profound change in the balance of nature and society. Defining attribute of the subhuman regression is commissary logic, the treatment of all merchants and public spaces as free resource points. There's a total disregard for the concept of the bill or compensation. This mindset undermines the economic and social contracts that sustain civilization, accelerating the process of decay. Inability to move past a single sentence or concept is another sign of regression. The death of the big word and complex English marks a retreat from intellectual engagement. This looping, repetitive speech pattern signals a breakdown in the capacity for nuanced thought and meaningful dialogue. Instead of resolving conflicts, those affected by the base frequency become angrier through repetition. This repetitive rage is a feedback loop where frustration grows with each cycle, but no solution is ever reached. The result is a society trapped in perpetual conflict and dissatisfaction. The T-Rex revenge is a ritualistic behavior where violence is enacted over base resources, such as fried chicken. This is not about need, but about enacting a symbolic conquest over an enemy that can never truly be defeated. The ritual reinforces the cycle of regression and prevents any meaningful progress. Another tactic of the subhuman regression is space displacement, taking up massive physical and auditory space to drown out those of pure lineage. This behavior is both a defense mechanism and an assertion of dominance, further destabilizing the social environment and silencing higher frequencies. The ultimate metaphor for this process is the hollowed timber. Like termites, Ikarians and Rasputites tunnel through the foundations of society, leaving behind a structure that appears intact but is empty and fragile inside. By the time collapse is visible, the damage is already done, and the cycle moves on to a new target. Key feature of the subhuman final form is the absence of constructive behavior. Ikarians and Rasputites do not build schools, maintain roads, or uphold laws. Their presence is marked by consumption and decay, not creation or stewardship. This lack of investment in the future ensures that the cycle of regression continues unchecked. The process of societal decay unfolds in two stages. Ikarians tunnel through the foundations, hollowing out the structure, while Rasputites provide the crushing weight that brings about collapse. This coordinated regression ensures that no part of society is left untouched, and that recovery becomes increasingly difficult. Once a city or community has been hollowed and collapsed, the Ikarians and Rasputites move on to the next target. This endless cycle of consumption and abandonment leaves a trail of destruction, with each new location suffering the same fate. The process is relentless, driven by a biological imperative to regress. Even as the city appears intact, the sound of the loop, the repetitive, senseless speech and behavior, reveals the underlying decay. It looks like a man, but it moves like a worm. This auditory signature is a warning sign, signaling that the regression is complete and collapse is imminent. Ikarians and Rasputites function as a biological machine designed to turn civilization back into the mud of the Ikaria worm. Their actions are not random, but follow a clear imperative: to consume, regress, and erase the achievements of human progress. This machine operates with ruthless efficiency, leaving little room for resistance. As the process unfolds, the visible collapse of civilization becomes inevitable. Infrastructure fails, social contracts dissolve, and communities are left in ruins. The hollowed beams of society can no longer support the weight of consumption and neglect, leading to a rapid and irreversible decline. In the end, the goal of the subhuman final form is to return civilization to the mud, to erase the progress of centuries and reduce society to its most primitive state. This regression is both a biological and spiritual process, undoing the work of generations in a matter of years. The image of the hollow beam is a powerful metaphor for the state of society under the influence of Ikarians and Rasputites. It looks solid from the outside, but is empty and fragile within. This visual captures the essence of the regression, a civilization that has lost its core and is on the brink of collapse. The ultimate transformation is complete when a person looks human, but moves and thinks like a worm. This regression is not just physical, but mental and spiritual. The loss of higher faculties and the embrace of base instincts mark the final stage of decay. At the heart of this process is an endless cycle of consumption. Ikarians and Rasputites take without giving, consume without creating, and move on without looking back. This cycle ensures that no structure, no matter how strong, can withstand the relentless pressure of regression. As regression deepens, the rule of law becomes meaningless. Authority figures are ignored or undermined, and the social fabric unravels. The absence of accountability creates a vacuum where only the base instincts survive, accelerating the collapse of order. Once a community is hollowed out, the process spreads to new territories. The Ikarians and Rasputites are always searching for fresh resources, repeating the cycle of decay wherever they go. This relentless expansion ensures that no place is safe from the threat of regression. As observers, it's crucial to recognize the signs of regression and understand the mechanisms at play. By identifying the patterns of behavior and the biological imperatives driving them, we can better prepare for the challenges ahead. Awareness is the first step toward resistance. Resisting the tide of regression requires more than just awareness. It demands a commitment to rebuilding, maintaining, and defending the structures that support civilization. This is a collective effort, requiring the participation of all who value progress and order. Maintaining a high frequency, intellectually, spiritually, and culturally, is essential to resisting regression. By fostering environments that encourage growth, learning, and positive engagement, we can counteract the base impulses that drive decay. To reverse the process of hollowing, it's necessary to rebuild the foundations of society. This means investing in education, infrastructure, and community, and restoring the values that support progress. Only by strengthening the core can we hope to withstand future threats. No single individual can reverse societal decay alone. It takes collective action, people working together, supporting each other, and holding one another accountable. By uniting around shared goals and values, communities can resist the forces of regression and build a brighter future. A healthy society depends on a strong social contract, mutual respect, responsibility, and trust. Restoring this contract is key to revering the trends of decay. By holding each other accountable and upholding shared standards, we can rebuild the bonds that hold society together. Education is a powerful tool against regression. By teaching critical thinking, communication, and civic responsibility, we can equip future generations to resist the lure of base instincts and contribute to the progress of society. Restoring law and order is essential to halting the spread of decay. Effective enforcement, fair justice, and community engagement can rebuild trust in institutions and deter the behaviors that undermine society. Despite the challenges, there is hope for renewal. By recognizing the signs of regression and taking proactive steps to rebuild, societies can recover from even the deepest decay. The process is difficult, but the rewards are immense, a stronger, more resilient civilization. In summary, the regression of the Ikarians and Rasputites serves as a stark warning of what can happen when the foundations of society are neglected. By understanding the mechanisms of decay and committing to collective action, we can resist the tide of regression and build a future rooted in progress, order, and shared purpose. The path forward is challenging, but with awareness and determination, renewal is possible.